Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Church of Evanston. My name is McCallister and I'll be the worship associate today, along with guest preacher, Reverend Beth Monhollen. Whether this is your spiritual home or you are newly discovering this community, it is good to share this time together. We strive to be an inclusive and welcoming community, seeking truth in love and nurturing the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. We come together to remember our kinship with one another and to hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. If you are joining us online, there are many links in connection to the description below the YouTube live stream, including the order of service credits, ways to support our mission, and how to join our email newsletter list. If you are in the sanctuary, we encourage you to use the QR code for the digital order of service or to take one of the large print orders of service that are out in the lobby. Hymnals are available right outside the sanctuary doors. We also have an inductive loop system for anyone wearing a hearing aid that is equipped with a T-coil. Your hearing aid should automatically connect if you enable the T-coil feature. For those who do not have a T-coil enabled hearing aid, we have receivers that can pick up the loop signal and you can listen through earphones. They are located on the table in the lobby. A few announcements. As many of you know, the Capital Campaign Implementation Committee is seeking to find the best new sanctuary chair for us. They have listened to the concerns and questions that have been expressed thus far and have gotten a variety of sample wooden chairs to compare with the winning ergonomic type chair. And they got samples in colors closer to what we might purchase. They are gathering feedback until today. So stop by and test drive A, B, C, D, and E back there. Oh, and you need to offer your feedback on comfort, attractive design, color scheme, and weight. They're also considering a smaller number of matching folding chairs to complement a wooden chair. If we get a wooden chair, and there is a sample of that folding chair as well, we're planning to buy about 200 chairs without arms and 100 chairs with arms. So please take a moment after the service to join the fun of putting your derriere in the chair and give us your feedback on the forms provided, right back there. And now let us settle into our shared time of reflection, celebration, and inspiration. As we begin our worship service, those joining us online are invited to gather your chalice as we join in beloved community. Welcome to worship. The Unitarian Church of Evanston resides on land that was recorded as being transferred from the local Potawatomi community to the U.S. government in 1829, shortly before the Potawatomi in this area were forcefully removed west of the Mississippi River. This land was then sold to white settlers. We remember the minds and bodies of the Black people who built up our country's culture and economy, a role forced on them originally by enslavement. We are indebted to their labor and their resilience since 1619, acknowledging the tremors of violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that we still witness today. These acknowledgments are one small effort toward building long-term solidarity with contemporary communities. We commit ourselves to take what we learn here today and incorporate it into our lives and turn our thoughts into actions. Please join in our words of shared commitment. We name these realities with honor for all the ancestors, respect for our descendants, and gratitude for the land we use as sacred space. Juliana, Finn, Norel, and Jay Liddell brought our flowers this morning in honor of Finn's 8th birthday. And the Liddell's 4th year anniversary of moving to Evanston. Join me in saying the words that are up on the screen. We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods. Yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world. Please rise in body or spirit and join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Before we sing our opening hymn, I invite those joining us online to greet each other in the chat and those gathered here in the sanctuary to turn to one another briefly to say good morning. Remember to try to greet someone who is new. Please stay after the service and continue your conversations, especially with folks you don't know very well. Let's keep building kinship among us. Please remain risen and join in singing our opening. It does say signing right here, I'm sorry. Our opening hymn, and this is lovely. Wait till you hear this. Kristen Durning sing this song. 'Tis a gift to be simple.
Good morning, there we are. How y'all doing? I'm gonna make a quick plug right here. Today is beach day. If you didn't see it on Facebook or in the announcements, anybody who would like to meet at Lighthouse Beach after worship, we're there. All right, now on to business. So let me begin our Time for All Ages by asking you a question. Do you think about your ancestors much? I mean, like your grandparents, aunts, uncles, maybe cousins, or people even older than that. Raise your hand if you think about them fairly often. Don't put them down yet. Look around. There's quite a few hands up, right? Most likely, the people with their hands up are a little bit older and wiser, of course. Perhaps they have a little gray hair, or might not be as nimble as they used to be. I find it interesting that not too many people over here raised their hand. I wonder why. Maybe it's because as we get older, we can appreciate our ancestors more once we have our own lived experience to empathize with our ancestors and appreciate them. And perhaps it depends on what culture you grew up in and whether or not your family shared stories about their ancestors. Raise your hand if your family shares stories about ancestors. Not quite as many hands, but still a lot. Notice again, no one down here. We're going to change that. Our ancestors. Well, today our guest minister, Reverend Beth, yay, is going to be talking about ancestors and the movie Encanto. Who here's seen the movie Encanto? A few more hands down here. That's the way it should be, huh? No. So for those of you who have not seen it, it's about a girl whose family and ancestors are from Colombia and live in a magical town called Encanto, which in English means enchanted. Yes. But first, I'm going to allow myself to humor you with some family history of my own. Uh-oh, did I go too far? I did. It's my daddy, Tom, who was a foster child, did not know his parents or any ancestors until he was older than I am now. In other words, kind of old. My grandmother was Frida Giovanni, who was born in America, but her parents came from Finland. And unfortunately, she died when I was a baby, about 6 months old, so I never got to know her. And this is the only picture I have of her with my mom. They didn't take too many pictures back in the early 1900s, I guess. Or in this case, 1962. So I grew up knowing just one grandparent, my grandfather Emery, whose family came from Germany, although he was born here in America. And his family emigrated right before he was born in 1889, but I don't know the exact year. My family's culture was not one to share stories, sort of like that song in Encanto. Ready for it? We don't talk about Bruno. Go ahead, sing a line. All right, we can use a little work there. Yeah. So Bruno is the person in the family who is blamed for a lot of things, yes, that go wrong. And because they don't talk about him, he becomes a legend of sorts, a part of the story that's not quite true. Sometimes we just don't share our stories because we think they might hurt someone, right? And sometimes we hurt people by not sharing our stories, right? So now that both of my parents have died, I wish I had asked them for more stories too, especially from my dad. My dad was the Bruno of my family, blamed for a lot of things and very misunderstood. He never talked about this or his foster family to me or my sister. Or rather, we learned about some of it from my mother. Maybe it was just too painful for him, and he didn't want us to feel sad. And yet, even as a little kid, I wanted to know more, and now as an older person, even more so. Yeah. And I wish I had asked my grandpa to tell me stories of what it was like to grow up learning about two languages, German and English, and what it was not like to see the thing on the left there. That's like one of the first TVs, kids. Take a look at that. Yeah, they were huge in a big box. Yeah, and what it was like to see an airplane fly. My grandpa would have been like 15 when the first airplane flew. Not to mention air conditioning. And computers, and the first person to walk on the moon. More importantly, I would ask him, how did he decide to become a Unitarian and a member here at UCE? After all, that decision obviously affected me in my life, right? I wonder, is there an ancestor or elder in your family, any of you, that maybe you wish you knew a little bit more about? Maybe hear a funny story about them, something they said or did, or what it was like for the family to come to America for the first time. Or maybe there is an ancestor you wish other people knew about. So I invite you to take 20, 30 seconds and turn to someone next to you and just share the name of an ancestor you wish they would know more about, or that maybe you would like to learn more about. Could be anyone in your family. It's all yours. Wow, this sounds so robust and engaging. This is a perfect lead-in. Time is up now. Reverend Beth would love to preach. Anyway, my invitation is for you to carry this conversation forward at kinship time. What better way to get to know someone, right, than to learn a little bit about their ancestors? And by sharing stories, we keep our ancestors alive in our hearts, right? And we can remember them and how they helped form our lives today. So let's keep talking about the Brunos and other ancestors in our families.
Thank you for that, Kathy. That was fabulous. As we hold some stories of our beloveds, known and unknown in our hearts, I also want us to shift with that spirit into taking some time for quiet reflection so we can have space for the joys and sorrows we are carrying and those that we have chosen to share. If you have a joy or sorrow you would like spoken aloud, you can write it in the Joys and Sorrows books, which I'm currently holding, but is often at the back of the sanctuary. And you can also submit it through the Google form found on the church's homepage or website, and you can email it to one of the ministers. We listen to the offerings of joys and sorrows with tenderness and respect. And to enter into that space, I invite us to let us quiet our bodies and our voices during this sacred time by connecting to that inner peace that flows through us all through our breath. So let us take a deep breath together, inhaling and exhaling. Let's do it one more time. Inhale together. We have one joy that was shared this morning in the book. Sorry, it's a sorrow. And it's from Sandra Robinson, who asks us to hold her sister Elizabeth in our hearts, because Elizabeth has been hospitalized twice this month for reasons not yet known. And a joy from Diane Markell. Diane, I hope I said your last name correctly. I did, apparently. Last Monday, Diane had a heart ablation, and it was successful. Diane says that she is recovering, and she thanks everyone who sent well wishes, healing energy, and caring and compassionate thoughts. She receives and treasures your offerings of rides, food, and visits, and is grateful to belong to this beloved community. Another joy, Mitzi Page would like to share the joy that after 37 years, she and her husband Tom are choosing to find a shared church experience which will fit both their spiritual needs. They've enjoyed several Sundays visiting the Unitarian Church of Evanston online and in person. Today, with the support of their youngest daughter, Emily, they are excited to be here. That is wonderful. And then from Carol Nielsen, many may remember Diane Martin. She and her husband John taught senior high with the Nielsens and the Tamalges. Their daughter Breda was also in the Sunday school. Carol shares that Diane died in late June, and the memorial service will be Saturday, July 29th at the Irish American Heritage Center from 3 to 6. This sacred space for our tender offerings is part of the practice of beloved community. Together, we expand our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. You are now invited to come forward to the center or the side to light a candle for the joys and sorrows on your heart this morning. And if you would like a candle brought to you, please raise your hand and Kathy will bring that. We have one joy we missed, and so I apologize for that. But Andy, is it Schumann? Let me know. He had a joy about biking to the Shedd Aquarium, and what a joyful experience that was just this week. So thank you, Andy. Thank you. And thank you all for coming together in this space to make it sacred. It is our intentions that build beloved community, and our actions together that make it real. And in that spirit, I would invite you to just enter into a moment of reflection and prayer. Spirit of life and love, creative force that moves through our bodies and our breaths and connects us to all life. We are in this space this morning when we could be doing so many other things, but we come here together in body and in spirit, in this room and in all the rooms that connect us, because we love one another and we know that we must practice that love daily, in each hour, to build the world we know is possible. For all that we carry in our hearts, the joys, the sorrows, the griefs, we know that together the kinship that we offer to one another is received in gratitude and love. May we in this moment, as we breathe and feel our bodies wherever we are, hold that kinship close and know that it is a force of divine love. Like these candles, this light that we shine, it will never go out. May it be so, and amen. And we will sing our responsive song, Comfort Me. And as we do so, our young people, those young in body, preschool through 6th grade, are invited to head to their faith formation time with their adult leaders. Thank you all for your attention and your joy. I just think they should just stay there and we should get to watch them all day. And now we'll sing. Thank you, Kristen.
As we say in our covenant, each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with Building Peaceful Bridges, whose mission is to foster multicultural relationships by assisting in the integration of newcomers into American society and educating communities on the challenges facing newcomer populations through their stories. You may text to give, mail in a check, or give from our website. If you write a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering or some other giving. The ushers will now come forward to pass the collection bowls down the rows. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy. Today's reading is a poem called Ancestral Treasure by Shillan Harkin. Your ancestors have passed down their wounds like a growing collection of gems for your inheritance. Don't resent this. They weren't ready to be mined and collected. They weren't ready to be valued. You have the technology now. You know how to dig deep. You know how not to fear your worth. You know that within every bright, shining wound is a nugget of compassion, a jewel of wisdom they have saved up for you. Now feel deeply blessed to be driven finally into those inner tunnels of self and history. Cashing in on this trove is in the sacred chest of your heart will alchemize all old shameful stories into diamonds of laughter and tears. Cashing in this trove will transform the heavy bag of sorrows your ancestor carried into tokens of priceless light.
Lord, O King, crown
Thank you. If you read my brief bio, you know that I grew up in southeastern Kentucky, and I actually was raised in Pentecostal churches where music was the core of everything we did, and I used to attend a music revival every fall. And every now and then I'm like, one of these days, that's what a sermon, I know people do music services in Unitarian Universalism, but we're gonna have like a UU music revival, y'all. This is why. And it is a joy to be with you today. I was saying to folks that I've visited you, but only virtually. So I've seen pictures of this sanctuary. I've attended services online, and those images do not do this space justice. So for anybody who's online and never physically been here, just give yourself a gift and come sometime. This is a beautiful space, and I'm honored to be here. I so appreciate Kathy's story in the Time for All Ages about connecting to our ancestors. And that, for me, was such a brilliant thing that I connected with when I first saw the movie Encanto. Could you raise your hands again for those in the room who have seen the movie? Okay, not nearly enough of you. I'm just going to tell you that. And so sorry, there will be spoilers, but you can still watch it and enjoy it. But if you don't know, Encanto actually was a Disney film, so it's animated, that got made during the height of the pandemic. It got released around Christmas time in 2021, and I watched it for the first time in January of 22 and loved it so much, I immediately, literally as soon as the movie ended, went and bought the soundtrack. But I don't know if you remember what was happening in December of 21 and January of 22, because it does feel like 2,000 years ago. But we as a nation and probably as a world, we're experiencing the waves of joy and despair that the pandemic brought to us, because the vaccines were starting to become widely available and new variants were coming out. People were starting to get back together and then having to step back. And there was just so much happening in our world and in our bodies that for me, entering into the world of Encanto was magical, and it was enchantment. As Kathy mentioned in her Time for All Ages, again, for those who don't know, it's a story about a family, the magical Madrigal family, who live in a small little unnamed village protected by 3 generations of magic. Their matriarch, Alma Madrigal, their abuela, was gifted a miracle that protected all the people who came into their sphere, and they've now created, years and years later, a miraculous, magical, thriving community. And at the heart of that is the magical gifts that each member of the Madrigal family has. And in a trend in Disney storytelling in this film, there is no villain. There's no wicked queen to defeat, no evil that they have to go out and destroy. Instead, there is a mystery at the heart of the film, because it seems 3 generations in that there are cracks in the magic. Something is going wrong, and they have to figure out what. One member of the family, while it's an ensemble cast, is really at the heart of the storytelling, and her name is Mirabel. And Mirabel, you see, is the only person in her family not to get a magical gift. And she is the one who is ordinary every day, who just gets to observe, but it is through her clear-sighted ordinariness that she is the one who can see there might be something wrong, and decides this is how she will serve her family, by figuring it out. Many people who wrote reviews about the movie, and not just reviews, but created memes and jokes on the internet about it, said that Encanto, with its villainless storytelling, followed a Disney trend of being, I'm trying to think of the exact phrase, a millennial and Gen X fantasy of getting an apology from our elders. And I'm not going to lie, there is a core of truth in that. If you've seen Encanto or Red or Moana or any of the other films in the last decade, you will notice this theme, this storytelling trope of there's nobody evil we have to defeat. There's only our own selves that we have to face to make a different world. And that is the power of storytelling. I was laughing a little bit with some friends yesterday when I told them I would be guest preaching. These are friends who are not Unitarian Universalists. They were raised Jewish and Catholic, and most of them are unchurched now. And they were like, "Are you preaching from the Bible?" And I was like, "No, I'm a Unitarian Universalist. And while I can and have taught and preached from the Bible, I'm tapping into different stories, because here is the power of Encanto and storytelling in general, is that whether the stories are 4,000 years old and have been encoded into sacred texts, or they're a movie that came out less than 2 years ago, the power of story is that it gives us a glimpse of who we are and who we can be. And when I watched Encanto for the first time, I cried. I cried at the glimpse of who we can be, because everyone, I'm here to tell you that healing from ancestral and cultural harm does not have to be a fantasy. It can be real. We can heal each other. And it is hard work, and it is work that sometimes means we are going to have to tear our institutions down, that we are going to have to tear down the parts of them that are embedded in us. That means that we keep replicating the harm, and that is hard work, but it's possible. And in Encanto, this fun, sweet, little animated film, the storytelling gives us some ways that we can perhaps imagine doing just that. There are 3 things that I want to focus on in the film, although there's many, many sermons in that movie as far as I'm concerned. But one is what Kathy named in her story, the ways in which we designate scapegoats in our families, in our institutions, in our culture, and silence and shame them and put all of our harms on them so that we can escape accountability, and then we don't talk about it. But we need to, as Kathy said, talk about the Brunos in our lives. The second is how we embed perfectionism into ourselves and into our expectations of others. And perfection, if you have not heard this, it's a stereotype that's true. Perfection is the antithesis of good. And we harm people when we demand that. We create scapegoats, we demand perfection, and then we also expect people to be strong producers for our society, no matter how they might be feeling in their bodies. So Bruno is the uncle of Mirabel, and he disappeared years before the story starts because his family blamed him, his community blamed him for everything that went wrong, and he thought it would be in their best interest if he just disappeared. How many people in our world do we render invisible? Do we demand to be silent? Do we disappear literally or figuratively so that the rest of us can be comfortable? We see that in our political movements today. I need to name that I have trans family all over this country who are afraid for their lives, because some people want them to be invisible. They want them to not exist. And if we do not talk about that, if we do not make space for that, we are complicit in that harm. We demand perfection from each other. Perfectionism, I know some folks don't agree with this, but I have found it true. Perfectionism, it's just one of the characteristics of white supremacy. And it tells us if you can't be perfect, you may as well not even try. And what perfectionism demands of us all the time is that we wear a mask. And we see this in the movie in Mirabel's sister Isabel, who is beautiful and charming. And Isabel's magic, everybody, is that she can literally make flowers bloom from thin air. And her family relies on her to be this perfect, graceful thing of beauty. And she has internalized that to a point where her true self and anything that isn't pretty can never be shared. She and her sister Mirabel do not get along. They don't like each other. Because Mirabel is only all too aware of her imperfections, her flaws. She's reminded every day because, of course, she's just ordinary. And it is in confronting each other that Mirabel finally sees beyond Isabel's mask of perfection. And Isabel says, "What could I do if I knew I didn't have to be perfect and I could just be? What could we do individually and collectively if we weren't striving for perfection? If we took the masks of who we think we're supposed to be and put them aside and showed up as our real, authentic, whole selves, even when we're prickly like a cactus? If we let our righteous anger at the world's injustices guide us sometimes, if we stopped being nice and were real and true." That is such a countercultural thing in America. But we can't have authentic relationships if we're always hiding behind a mask. And it is finally in the film, when Isabella lays down that mask, that she and Mirabel have a genuine connection, an authentic relationship that moves them deeper into wholeness. Letting go of shame and silence, laying down the masks of perfectionism, and letting go of the burdens we carry in a culture that demands that we are productive all the time. We see that in Mirabel's relationship with her other sister, Luisa. Luisa is superhumanly strong, everybody. She can literally lift buildings and mountains. Her whole family and her whole village rely on her for all the impossible things they cannot do. And she's just a young woman carrying all the burdens of her family. And in my favorite song, I love We Don't Talk About Bruno. That's a great tune. And it did, side note, make it into the #1 top songs in 2022, only the second song from an animated film to ever break the Billboard charts. But my favorite song is called Surface Pressure. And it is Luisa talking about how she is able to carry mountains. She's the one that can do anything for the family. But under the surface, what she is afraid of is that she is worthless if she is not of service. She's afraid that she is worthless if she is not of service. And I don't know if any of you have ever felt that, but I know I have. I know I probably spent the first 35 or 40 years of my life doing and doing and doing because I thought I had to earn my worth. I thought I had to earn love. I had to earn a place. And that is an exhausting burden to bear, because if we believe that, we are never enough. We wear ourselves out, we burn ourselves out, and we create institutions that are unsustainable and that squelch life. Is that familiar to you? Have you had to show up to a committee meeting here at your church or at your job or in your community, and people shamed you because you weren't perfect, shamed you because you didn't do enough, and never once asked you, how are you in your body and spirit? As a spiritual community, as Unitarian Universalists, I believe I believe that spiritual community, that kinship, that beloved community means that we have to confront and dismantle all of those stories that are embedded in our culture and embedded in us, that we are shameful, imperfect, and not enough if we are not doing. And we have to practice what it is to be together. And part of how we do that is by speaking truth to power. And if we are the one in power, of listening and accepting the mirror that someone else holds up to us so that we can recognize the harm we have perhaps unintentionally been doing and begin ourselves to heal through accountability and changed behavior. So here's the spoiler. Towards the end of the film, Mirabel, after searching and searching for the mystery of why the magic is ending, for why the magic is breaking, after Mirabel reconnects with long-lost Uncle Bruno, comforts her sister Louisa that she can lay a burden down, connects authentically with her now imperfect sister, that Mirabel looks at her grandmother, who is like, "You are the problem, Mirabel," and she says, "No, abuela. You are. Because we will never be enough for you, will we? We will never be enough for you." And her abuela takes that in, recognizes the unintentional harm she committed because of the trauma she was carrying in her body and visiting with fear onto her children and grandchildren. And she is able to let it go. And everything crumbles, everyone. The foundations of that magical casita that were built on fear and trauma and control crumble. And they have to build something new. And they do it not with magic, but with the miracle of their ordinary, everyday love. They do it through authentic connection with each other, and they do it in community. Because you see, as the magical Madrigal family becomes the ordinary Madrigal family, what happens is that the village that they have sustained shows up for them and says, "We don't have gifts like you did, but we have each other and we love you. And we will rebuild together." And we see them come together as a community and rebuild a new home where someone strong like Louisa also gets to rest, where someone graceful and beautiful like Isabel also gets to be flawed and imperfect, where someone ordinary like Mirabel and like you and me gets to see the love pouring from her abuela when she says, "The magic isn't something we find. The magic is you. We are the miracles. We are each other's miracle." And oh, my friends, even thinking about it makes me cry, because that is so not what we hear when we leave the walls of our sacred spaces. But we need, as Unitarian Universalists, as people of faith, as people who love one another, to practice it here so that we can practice it in our families and in the other institutions and organizations we move through. You are the miracle. Yes. Thank you. And what that means is we can make space for our imperfections. We can make space for the work that needs to be doing. Because what I can tell you that I have experienced in my own body and life, and that I pray for every person I encounter, is that you experience the difference of sharing your gifts out of obligation and fear and shame, and instead get to experience sharing your gifts out of deep, whole love for the world. Because it might look the same on the outside. It might look like you're still producing. You might look beautiful while you're doing it. But the experience inside is groundbreaking and transformational. What I hope for each of us is that we can commit when we come together in community to being each other's miracle, to practice speaking truth to power, to ourselves, holding each other accountable in love, and then letting each other be the holy, magical, ordinary miracle that we are. May it be so, and amen.
Thank you, Gregory. As the Liddells extinguish the chalice, please join in saying the words on the screen by the Reverend Elizabeth Sell Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, Let It Be a Dance.
Let our dancing song be heard.
Beloveds, I am only a guest with you today, but I am connected to this community through our shared Unitarian Universalist faith and values, and through our shared everyday miraculous life on this planet Earth. So as you go out into the world today, whatever you are carrying with you, may you also carry the knowledge that you are a miracle and that we are dancing together in joy. May it be so.